Good evening, keepers of the couch. Gary B, the Casual Comic Guy here, and welcome to another episode of the 1011. I'm going to bring out my co-host. We're going to get this show rolling. First up is my steady right hand. We have Rob, Fat Stacks of Comics. How you doing this evening, Rob?
I'm just Ducky.
All right, and then we have Matt Woods Comics. How you doing tonight, Matt?
I am doing wonderful. Thanks for having me on, Gary, and great to see you, Rob.
Hello, Matt.
And we have a third co-host this evening, none other than Anachronic Comics, Joe. How you doing tonight, sir?
Doing good. I'm sporting my Keep It Casual t-shirt for you, Gary.
And it looks great on you. And you as well, Matt. Thank you, gents. And of course, the show needs a guest, and we have a very special guest tonight. We are bringing out Mr. Doug Bratton. How you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Gary.
Oh, thank you for coming on. Very excited to have you. So, as we like to do, Doug, we're going to get the show rolling. But first, before we say hi to the crowd, why don't you talk a little bit about who you are, introduce yourself to everybody, and let them know what you got going on.
Thanks, Gary. My name's Doug Bratton, and I am a father, comic book collector. Those are just a couple of the hats I wear in life, but one of my favorite hats that I wear is as a writer and a cartoonist. And I'll talk a little bit more about it when we get into the 1011. But I was a syndicated newspaper cartoonist and a magazine cartoonist for about 15 years, and currently. I write the comic book series Isolation that Reggie Simmons, who's known on YouTube as Reggie Collects, is the publisher through Swolger Publishing. It's been a lot of fun working with Reggie on a number of projects the past 3 years, and they all led up to Isolation. So, and Isolation, for if you have not read it yet. You can pick up a comic copy on swolgerpublishing.com, which is the website for the publisher. Currently, issues 1 and 2 are available hard copy. 3 sold out, but you can get it digitally. And then there's pre-sales for issue number 4, which comes out next month.
And the link to get that, I made it nice and easy for you guys. Just go to the description. You can click on the link to Swolger Publishing and order your Doug Bratton books there. Now, Doug, you did recently, and I think it's worth mentioning, appeared on another show. I mean, not quite as prestigious as Gary B, the Casual Comic Guy, but he does okay. I think it was Anachronic Comics, a guy named Joe. No, I'm going to bring Joe up a second.
Some guy. I'm sending the shirt back, Gary.
I know. But Joe, I put the link to your show. You did a great interview with Doug. So thanks. I just want you to mention the show and promote Doug a second. The link is in the description. Give the audience a little bit about what that interview was.
Sure. Well, Doug and Dave were on the show. Dave kind of pushed his way onto the show, frankly, but that's okay. The two brothers, because Dave has a connection with Isolation as well. He has a variant cover for number 4 that's coming out, which is really great. But one of the things, being friends, and I mean, the fact of the matter is that Isolation, whether I'm a friend or not of Doug's, is just a terrific read. And it was about a year ago, roughly, when number 1 came out, and I did a little bit of a story on it. But then I started thinking to myself, I've gotten to learn more and more about Doug and Dave, and I thought it would be really great to have a show where I can get into a little bit of the creative process with Doug and show how Dave actually has gotten involved with it and how the idea came up with a variant cover. So it's really kind of almost a good behind the scenes type of interview show where I put together the questions and we got some really great answers. And I think it's really informative. And if you haven't bought or considered buying Isolation as of yet, I think you need to go and watch that episode on Anachronic Comics. It was just, what was it, Doug? Maybe a couple of weeks ago?
Yes.
And I think take a look at that because it really gives you kind of the background and the information about Isolation, which I think once you take a look at that, you're going to want to buy the book. And the book is just a tremendous story. And, I keep telling Doug that Dave tells me to stop doing that because Doug's head is swelling too much. But, truth is truth, Dave. That's the way it goes. So I was happy to do it. And if you have the opportunity to go and watch the video, I think you'll enjoy it.
And guys, I try to make it easy. Like I say, the link to Joe's video is in the description below, as is the link to all these fine gentlemen on the panel and the guests. So please go check everybody out.
Fine gentlemen now?
Gary,
Hey,
you don't know.
Wow.
I can stretch the truth with the best
Okay.
of them.
All right. Fair enough.
Now, Doug, before we get back to you, we're of course going to say hi to everyone in the audience. So first in, as always, it's not Las Cruces, it's Stephanie. Stephanie has beat Las Cruces.
Hey, Stephanie.
Cruces pulling in second place. Buddy, everybody has an off day. Don't hold it against yourself. But we got Stephanie sitting here rubbing it in. That's it. I beat Las Cruces. It's official. Taking her win in grace as usual.
Posted yesterday.
And we have Jerry the Jitterbug, one of my favorite people.
Great guy.
How you doing tonight, Jerry? Tony from Comiverse is here. Tina, Mrs. Blue Wrench on everyone's channel, keeping the YouTube community in line, one wrench at a time. We have Mark Andrews. Good evening, Mark. Nice to see you, sir.
Hey, Mark.
And we also have Psychedelic Comics. How you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
And Matt Woods. We'll try to ignore that guy's there. Hold on.
You
We always get a couple that sneak in on you. We got Dave Bratton in. Good evening, Dave. Nice to see you, sir. And we are.
He's the better looking Bratton brother.
Well, let's see.
Joe always does.
We have Jean Malot. Good evening, Jean.
Hey, Jean.
Hey, Sean.
Joe?
Madam, stopping back in real quick. Enjoy your night out, Stephanie. And Dave, you totally got thrown under the bus. And then we have Philtastic Comics and Art joining us. Good evening,
Hey,
Phil. Nice to see you,
Phil.
sir. All right, we have got a full audience. Brian LCS, good evening.
Hey, Brian.
Brian.
And we are almost at Who Dat Comics.
Who
Who
Dat?
Dat coming up next month on, I believe, July 20th on In the Hot Seat. And we got to reschedule his 10-1-1.
Yes.
So look for that in the future. All right. And I think for the moment, we are caught up. So, Doug, we're going to bring it all back to you. And let's just get started with your number one book, sir.
All right. This was hard. When you told me pick 12 comics, I was thinking, or 12 books, I was going to have to do some work. And then I had to curate it because, all of them sort of are personal to me, but I thought I'd start out with Isolation number one.
Surprise!
And in part because Joe was teasing me when he found out I was going to be on your show, Gary, and he DM'd me and was like, "Doug, are all 12 of your books going to be copies of Isolation?" And I said, "Well, if Gary will give me an extra book, I'll have 13." So, but obviously, without getting too much into it, this one's really special to me because it's the culmination of a lot of great collaboration with other wonderful people, including Reggie Simmons and Delia Gunderson and Elena Morton, and Beth Charland, who just did tremendous work. And obviously I'm very proud of this, and I sport the original right back there. So that's my number one book.
Cover, Doug. It's a beautiful cover.
Yeah, Delia is an amazing artist. So
What's the story behind that cover? You got Maggie Connors reflecting there in the axe, but what's the story behind that?
Delia and I brainstormed a lot of different cover ideas, and that was the one that we just really loved. We started with coming up with a color scheme, and we wanted a look that would be more reminiscent of a movie poster than a comic book cover. And Delia had the brilliant idea and used kind of 80s slasher horror movies as an inspiration.
I was going to say that's a very 80s throwback cover.
Yep. And that was
perfect.
yeah, and ultimately of all the different sketches she did, it was like that is it. That's got to be the cover. So and Mandy Connors, who's the main character in many ways, it's the story of isolation, which spans multiple time periods and is a mystery. Is ultimately she's somewhat the narrator of the story. So we felt it was important to showcase her.
Ooh,
I
nice.
have to admit, the foil version of that cover, it's absolutely fire.
It is.
It literally jumps off the page, the image right at you. So you guys did amazing on that. You know, all these variant covers, but that one in particular.
Yeah, I think the foil is my favorite
Yeah.
of all those. Really.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nice.
Chewy,
90s
I
comic.
have to respond to Stephanie's question. Chewy was right here. He was co-piloting, and then he had to take a restroom break, and there's a lot of fur, and it's a big mess. So he's taking care of that.
All right, let's get on to number 2, Doug.
All right. So this book you may recognize, New Teen Titans Annual #1. And the significance to me, you know, it's not really a key comic or anything, but this is actually the first comic book that I ever purchased.
Wow.
Oh,
nice.
And my older brother Dave started collecting comics a little bit before me, and we were in a comic shop. I was always a Robin fan. As the little brother, you know, I was always Robin to my brother's Batman for Halloween. And when I saw this painted cover by George Perez, it instantly hooked me. I had to get it. And this started my, truly started my love of buying, reading, collecting, and ultimately making comics.
Nice.
Nice.
It's great having that first one.
Yeah.
Wish I did. Wish I had.
Was Dick Grayson your favorite Robin still? Or
Yeah, I've
any others that have come up there and taken over?
I've always been a Dick Grayson fan, and I read more indies now and less, you know, less DC and Marvel. But I grew up on that Wolfman Perez run, and you know, and honestly, well, before that, the Burt Ward version,
66.
Right.
you know, on TV. But Dick Grayson was my Robin. I loved it when he transitioned to Nightwing, and as a, you know, probably 8 or 9-year-old when I got that, you know, looking up to someone who was 19 was everything. So.
And Nightwing is pretty much regarded as the best title at DC for a couple years running now.
Mhm. My brother
You
picked
too,
me up.
Robin.
My brother picked me up that the issue of Nightwing where it's all kind of one continuous story that was just brilliant. So
Well, so you must really appreciate that being a cartoonist.
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Great #1. See, that's what I love about the show. Just that book has not been on the show before, and this is why we do it. We learn something about the guests. So #3, great book. And you can never
All
go
right.
wrong with Perez, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, my screen froze for a second. Did you ask me to go to #3?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're good.
I bet this one will have never been featured on your show either. This is Star Years issue #1, and it has an amazing Bill Sienkiewicz painted cover. This is not a flex valuable book if you find it out there. You know, but for me, the significance and why I wanted to bring this one out is this is the first comic art by Mike Chen, who was my Saturday morning cartooning art instructor at the Joe Kubert School. And while he was teaching our class, he told us, hey, I have a comic coming out from Marvel. And I was, you know, just it was amazing that my comic art teacher had his own book coming out, and really this one I chose because it somewhat represents also the first Saturday class I ever took at the Joe Kubert School when I was like 10 years old was taught by Joe Kubert himself. I had no idea who Joe was at the time, and since then I've become a good friends with Anthony Marquez, who now runs and owns and operates the Kubert School and is a Batman artist for Batman the Audio Adventures. So lots of amazing creators, including our entire Isolation team that have come out of the Joe Kubert School. And I thought this was a good representation of that.
And
it's
Sienkiewicz
interesting.
did all the covers for that
You
issue.
get that.
movie.
Yeah.
Mike Chen doing that sci-fi, and Mike Chen's cranking out sci-fi right now on a Deep Space Nine covers.
Oh, I did not know that. I have to look
this
for
is
that
actually, I
now.
just got this one recently signed by Mike Chen.
Oh, how cool.
locally. But
Yeah, show it real quick, Rob.
he's
There you go.
been doing these covers for the Dog of War series for Deep Space Nine. Has been doing that, Mike Chen.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So he's still doing sci-fi stuff.
Nice. Yeah, tying it all. See, I love seeing series like that, right? Because I always say about this show, it's not about value; it's just about what you love. Star Years is a 4-issue series that you can get out of any dollar bin,
Absolutely.
and it's pure nostalgia greatness. It just connects you to your childhood instantly, and for you, it has a deeper connection. So it's really cool. All right, number 4.
All right. Number 4, I'm sure people have had before. Watchmen #1. And
Never heard of it. Just kidding. Just kidding.
for me, Watchmen and the next book I brought out because they were 2 books that came out when I was young, and Watchmen it was a little over my head because I was pretty young, but I realized over time that it had raised the bar for writing in comic books. And Alan Moore, I think, is brilliant. I think there was about a 10-year period where all of the greatest writing in comics history was done, and Alan Moore was a big part of that. And that's why that book is important to me as a writer.
Yeah, that whole time period, you had so many good writers and so many good stories that came out.
Yep.
That is just amazing, when you look back at that time frame.
Yep.
You got Mark asking Dave if he snuck you into the theater to see the movie.
Yeah.
Now, were you a fan of the movie, Doug?
I liked it. I thought it was a fairly solid retelling of the story. I feel like books like The Watchmen, I feel, would benefit more from a streaming series, because to take a 12-issue series and turn that into a 2 to 2.5 hour movie is tough. With that said, I thought it was a good adaptation. I felt some of the tweaks they made to update it worked actually quite well. But I would love to see The Watchmen done as a streaming series, kind of like when they did the prequel for HBO Max. I hope they'll someday revisit the source material, even though Alan Moore does not want them to do anything with it. From my understanding, I'd like to see that version.
Well, I agree with you with that too, because I think a lot of these longer ones are better formed as a serial.
Yep.
Just there's no reason to always have to cram something into a 2.5 hour flick.
Well, my belief is with any kind of multi-hero movie, you're better off either at least having a 3-hour movie, or I like what they did with the Avengers in terms of Infinity War and Endgame. Do like a 2-parter, so you can have like you can have 5 hours or 6 hours or close to 6 hours, and that way you can really get the story in there. 2-hour movie, even 2.5, with all those heroes and especially with Watchmen, it's a really convoluted story. I mean, I read it as an adult, and I bought the trade and had to read it. The first time I read it, I wasn't sure I knew what had happened in it. I had to go back. So and I watched the movie and I liked it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you lose a lot, in just 2.5 hours from a 12 issue comic.
It was well directed, well acted, but it did feel a little sterile. And I don't think that was because of that it was poorly made. I think it's just you can't develop that many characters in that short of time. So
Right. I mean, I
Let's
thought
be
they did
honest,
best
the
case
book was
scenario
better.
with it for that amount of time. I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Gary, but I was saying, let's just be honest. The book was better. So much more detail, so much more, so much story to it that, like Doug said, 2.5 hours, you cannot tell that same story in that limited amount of time.
All right, number 5, sir.
okay, number 5, another one you've certainly seen before.
Ooh.
Dark Knight #1. And this, like Watchmen, another one of those books that I did read when it came out, but just really changed my view of who Batman could be. I do collect and love great Batman stories. There seem to be an unusually high number of amazing Batman stories, and this I actually bought from my LCS when I was about, I guess it came out when I was around 10. And this was the first comic. I would buy them, for 60 cents, 75 cents. And this came out with $3 and a week later had doubled to $6, which was like more than my weekly allowance. So I couldn't afford it. And like 3 weeks later, it was like $25. So far out of my childhood reach. I never thought I would get this. And about a year after it came out, I bought 2, 3, and 4, but I did not have issue #1. And when the book cooled down, my LCS owner had it on his wall for $12, this copy. And I went and asked him if he would hold it for me for a month so I could save up to pay the $12 for the book, and he did that for me. He held it for me.
Wow.
And
what a great story. What a good guy.
Yeah. So this reminds me of not only the greatness in writing and what a comic can be, but also the wonderful people that become part of your journey as a collector. And I'll also mention that Isolation 4, the cover that my brother did, is an homage to this and Superman #1. So
you beat me to the segue on it.
Right, and if you watch my video, you'll see what it looks like.
And then Joe, you beat me to my second segue. All right, number 6, Doug.
Okay, number 6. This is a cool one. Fantasy Quarterly #1. It just happens for extra fun to be in a CGC Modern holder, which was
that's the old school
in the first year.
Red label.
Yeah. And also, it's noted, which now I guess it would probably get a green qualified label, that is signed on the interior to somebody I can't read, Best Richard and Wendy Peeney. So this is also a signed copy of the first appearance of ElfQuest. And really, this book represents when I was about 12, 13 years old, my transition into the world of indie comics. Someone recommended ElfQuest and Mage to me, and those books forever changed my comic reading habits because this series is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
What a coincidence.
You don't see many of those red labels around anymore. Most people cracked them, sent them back, and had them regraded. And so that's a rarity right there.
He just got a print of that in a collection he bought, signed by Wendy Peeney.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I just looked at it today.
Oh, nice.
It's really cool. Good timing.
Oh, and Gore, nice to see you, sir. All right, nice. Good. And see, another book that we've never had on the channel. Very nice.
Well, this I
Now-
think this is in the 1011. This is the first red label you've had too.
It is.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
Now,
double
Rob, you want
flip.
to tell them about the red label real quick?
Well, the red label's just in the early days of CGC, they split the modern era from the bronze, silver, whatever else. With you saw it in their grading where they go, this is their modern tier and their other tier, and so it used to be that they had a separate color for that modern tier until they combined it into the universal grade.
There
The
we
only
go.
the biggest problem with those books back then is that they're completely sealed. They don't have a gas exchange, and so they sealed these books in humid Florida, and so there's a possibility that over time they can mold and grow
Yeah.
like a chia pet.
This one's lasted about 22 years and no signs of it, so I'm keeping it in the old school. It's
Yeah,
fun.
especially since it's going to get a green label if you ever pull it out now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's still spectacular. And that was what I had to get encapsulated. What 2000 when they first came out?
Yeah, I think they
First
only
year.
did that for 1 year. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just picked up one for $29 the other day on eBay.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
All right. Number 7, Doug. Great book so
Okay.
far, sir.
Thank you. Second Batman book. The Long Halloween,
Ooh,
number
nice.
1.
Great story.
And the reason that I brought this one out was I had stopped, other than like indie comics and humor comics, I had stopped reading comics for many years. And my brother Dave, who's kind of like a comic maven to me, he introduces me to stuff, said, I think you would like reading The Long Halloween. And I read it and loved it. And I thought it was one of the best Batman stories and one of the best comic series I've read. And I also feel that Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale as a team are one of the best creative teams. And I think are a great example of, where the sum is greater than the whole of the parts. Like, and Tim Sale, if you would show me just a picture of Tim Sale's Batman without ever having me without me ever having read the series, it wouldn't be my Batman. It's very stylized, pointy ears. It wasn't my thing, but one of the greatest visual storytellers ever. Just whenever I read anything that Tim Sale has illustrated, it's made better by his brilliant artwork. So that's why I wanted to bring out The Long Halloween, issue 1.
Nice. So
Great
you
story.
can't say he's not the Batman you envision when you picture Batman. So who is the Batman you envision when you picture Batman?
It's only one.
Yeah, I would say
No,
from
I know, probably Neil Adams, right? But a lot of people did great Batmans.
David Mazzucchelli's mine. I love Mazzucchelli's Batman. And I think part of the reason is you rarely see him out of the shadows. To me, my perfect Batman, if or when I ever get the opportunity to have a Batman comic series, I would fight for an artist who will never show Batman standing in all his glory. Batman will always be in the shadows, always enveloped in a cape. That's who Batman is to me.
Yeah, always being a bit ominous,
Yes.
foreboding. Yep, nice.
Well, hopefully that'll happen for you one day.
Ooh,
Doug?
it says your brother's saying that you're sitting on a great Batman story.
Yes.
Insider scoop right there.
Right.
Right?
We'll
Sounds like a
see
whole
what the
nother
future
show.
holds. Yeah.
All right. Number 8, Doug.
Okay, now this is in the comics realm, but I'm going to start to get out of the traditional comic books for some of your usual audience. So bear with me. This book,
Nice.
some of your kids may be familiar with, Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And this is probably the most valuable book in my collection, unintentionally. I am a member of the National Cartoonist Society, which is a professional association of many newspaper cartoonists, but other creators as well. And one of my friends through the NCS is Charlie Kochman, who is the editor for Abrams Books, and he was a Mad and DC editor, brilliant editor with incredible taste. And he discovered Jeff Kinney in a conversation at the first New York Comic Con. And when I was at Comic Con the next year, I went to visit and chat with Charlie, and this book had not come out yet. It hadn't hit the shelves, but they had advanced copies there. Jeff Kinney was there to promote the book. Charlie introduced me to Jeff and told me, he's like, oh, his work is great. I just wanted to support my friend and a new creator. So I went over and bought this copy and got it signed by Jeff and asked him, which is normal among kind of newspaper comics, if he'd be willing to sketch it for me. And he was extremely flattered. If you know the story about this, it started out as a web comic. So this was his first physical publication. He'd never been asked to sketch something before, and he told me that. Wow. And as a joke, I said, well, you should write it in there. It'll be worth money someday. And he laughed and did write that in this. So it's not only signed and sketched, but it says first ever signed sketch copy of this book or whatever. And a year later, when I saw a giant stand in Barnes and Nobles, I realized that this book had done well. And there's about 400 million copies of this series now in print.
Right, and it's a juggernaut. It's like book 13 or 14 or something. I know my kid read a bunch of them when he was.
Oh yeah, yep.
I have that book in my library behind that door there. Yeah. And I remember you telling me that story one time, Doug. I think we were reading lunch or something. Dave, you and I was just blown away by it. But I haven't seen the actual book until just now. So that is really cool. Now, I would say no to the question I'm going to ask you, Doug, but are you able to open up to the page with the sketch?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Sure.
See, I wouldn't want to.
Okay. Sketch. So here's where that's hard to see, where he originally signed it. And when I asked to sketch it, first ever Greg Heffley drawing for a book dated 2007. So it's actually double signed because then he re-signed by his sketch.
Nice.
So, very nice.
That is cool.
And I was told that when my kid got into college, I might be able to sell it and pay for a year. My son is now entering his freshman year in college, and I am not selling that. That will be passed down to my son.
Anything like my son's tuition. I don't think it's selling for that much.
Yeah.
that is awesome. That is a great story too. Holy cow. All right. I mean, number 9. How are you going to follow that one up, Doug?
Okay. Well, this is a Mad magazine.
Ooh,
and I threw in there part of the reason this book is special to me. First, this was the first Mad magazine that one of my comics was published in. So I did a handful of comics for Mad magazine. This was the first. Why this one's more special to me is Al Jaffe. If people are familiar with Mad magazine, Al Jaffe is a brilliant, famous cartoonist who invented and did every single Mad back cover fold-in. And he passed away this year at the age of 102 years old. And I was very fortunate enough to get to know Al through the National Cartoonist Society. We became friends. And when I had my first comic published in Mad, I asked Al if he would sign it for me, which he did. So this is very special to me because of Al. So
nice.
And I remember folding all those covers as a kid too.
Yep. Do you know the story of why they kept doing them?
No.
He created it as a one-off gag to kind of make fun of the centerfold of Playboy. So Playboy has a
You'd-
centerfold.
You'd
Mad
fold it out,
Magazine,
and says that you folded it in.
yeah, Mad
Nice.
Magazine's too cheap, so we fold in. And his editor was like, "This is brilliant. People will buy 2 copies. They'll buy one to fold and read, and then they'll buy a clean copy to store in a box someday." And so he asked Al if he could keep coming up with ideas, and he did so for over 50 years. So
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't ever remember it because I used to get that magazine constantly as a kid. I don't ever remember not having a back cover to fold.
nope.
No,
Right.
Yeah.
that was one of the highlights of it.
And I was always trying to like keep them rounded so I could see the picture but not really hurt the cover.
I did the same thing.
Yep, same here.
But
But
I
I
had
see
to
in
do
the
it.
comments, Brother Joe, he said that Al Joffrey was nice enough to send him a letter. So everybody has nice things to say about Al.
He was quite he was so nice, so down to earth, so giving to creators. He never acted superior to the newbies who were coming up. He was a colleague to you, and just a brilliant wit, just the funniest, sharpest guy you'd ever want to meet.
I was saying you kind of have to be to make 50 years worth of covers, right?
Yeah.
You gotta have something going on up there that's creative.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know hold on. Let's see if it has an issue number on it. 463, March 2006.
Steve White has that copy at his house.
Oh,
Steve, he has every single copy of Mad Magazine back from the 50s up to modern day.
well, if he
Whenever they
checks
quit.
out the Fundolini pages, that's where my spoiled Bratton comic first appeared. So
And now in that comic, were you picking on your older brother?
no, it's actually a Disney parody where it's Aladdin flying with Jasmine, the Disney version, on the carpet,
Right.
singing "I Can Show You the World," and on the other side of the cloud is a giant airplane with a propeller coming right at him. So.
Nice.
Uh,
It's just nice, is
okay,
it?
just show them.
I'm not taking that one out right now.
I don't blame you, especially with
No.
the Jaffe signature. All right, number 10, sir.
All
That
right.
you then posted on Instagram.
Yes. You know what? I'll remember. I'll post all of these on Instagram, and I'll post that as well. So, number 10. This is the Deranged Stalkers Journal of Pop Culture Shock Therapy. It was kind of a best of / hybrid humor book collection of my daily newspaper comic, Pop Culture Shock Therapy, and this was important to me. I've had about 10 or 12 books now out, but my first several were ones that I self-published and used to promote the comic at Comic Cons. And this one was picked up by Andrews McNeil, Universal, who's a very famous publisher in the comics world. They publish like The Far Side and Calvin and Hobbes. And when I found out they were going to pick this up and publish this book, it was, it kind of like made my career, helped me feel less like an imposter out there in the world. It didn't matter that I had Magazine, and until you had your own collection by Andrews McNeil,
It made you feel it gave you a sense of validity.
Yeah, there you go.
So
Yeah, well,
Doug
I
Bratton.
just finally read it, and I just have to say, I sat down and read it from first page to last page in one sitting because it was just so friggin' funny. I'm going through it, and like I told them, the whole thing about the deranged stalker thing just was actually quite good. And I assume you wrote that stuff, Doug. So
Yes, I did.
I think you do need to go for some psychiatric observations.
Yeah.
Doug definitely has some issues there.
It's really quite good.
Well, you can't be a writer and not have some issues. Where do you think
Yeah.
that was for?
Well, if you're a writer, you hope to have issues.
Right?
I have a few of Doug's issues right here.
So we're talking about.
Right?
So, number 11 with a personal story attached, Doug.
Okay, the personal story one. This is the Sandman #1.
We're waiting for that.
It is a CGC 7.0. It could absolutely be cracked, pressed, and get at least a 9, maybe a 9.2.
Yes.
But this has special meaning to me, not only because I am a huge Sandman fan and lover of Neil Gaiman's work, but this was actually an AOK given to me by Matt Woods. And I didn't know Matt was going to be on the show when I picked this book, honest. But I picked it because it, in many ways, represented in the last few years. I got back into collecting through Sandman. And also, I was kind of bored at home during the lockdown and was introduced to the online comics community through Reggie Collects and his channel. And what an amazing group of people like Matt and Joe and Tina and Madam Blaster and Mark Andrews and Phil Tastic and Paul. So I could go on and on. I've just met so many wonderful people in this community who I consider my friends now. And this was a really, really thoughtful gift, and I treasure it because of that. So
Nice. That Matt Woods, sometimes he surprises you, you know, just
He has
Every
his
now
moments.
and then.
Yeah.
Hey, Tina's cool in so many ways, and and she's in a chat there, but I kept hearing this term AOK in the Reggie Collects chat. And I actually like what does AOK even mean? And somebody just wrote, Tina wrote act of kindness. And I'm like, what? That was such a foreign thing to me. I'm like, people just do that kind of stuff. And Tina sent my son a statue of Darth Vader. Like, I didn't even know Tina at the time. I truly didn't. And like, I just thought that was such a cool thing. So I think AOK is one of the best parts of the comic book community through and through. There's something special about that whole thing that I don't think anywhere else they do that type of stuff.
well, you know something, I have to say then that the very first AOK I ever got was a joint one from Tina and Matt. So that was special to me.
that's cool.
Too. Yeah.
Very cool.
I didn't know that, Joe.
Yeah.
We got
And
an
Dave,
AOK
it's on the way, buddy.
I had an AOK that Joe sent me. It's sitting right here.
Oh,
One
that
of my
was-
favorite. I just love this book.
Oh, nice.
yeah, that's a cool book.
That is awesome.
And that's the thing too. Like Matt, like you, when I first got into this community, I kept hearing the phrase "AOK." It was driving me nuts. I couldn't figure out what it was.
Yeah. And I don't think it's
you
unique.
know.
No, I don't think AOK is unique to just community, but
No.
we do it right here.
Absolutely. All right, so Doug, this brings us to your spec pick, sir.
Okay. Less because of the actual issue, but I'll explain. So I'm a Sandman fan, and anybody who, if you've seen me on Reggie or read my blogs, you know I'm a huge Sandman fan. What is pretty much not really known in the comics community is the later issues of Sandman did start having barcodes, and they are extremely hard to find in newsstand copies. And when I mean extremely hard, I mean I've been buying and watching Sandman comics on eBay for years, and the actual series, the original series, I've seen maybe 5 different issues ever come up for sale on eBay with the barcode without direct sales. And it's just, they're not really thought about, known. Usually when they come up like this one, they come up in a lot with other comics. And this happens to be one of the very few key issues late in the series. I won't spoil the story with saying what the key is, but this is one that I came across. The Essential Sandman Vertigo reprints also were in the mid to late 90s. They also have newsstand variants. Those seem to come up slightly more often. I've picked up probably about 15 or so different copies of it. I'd love to get the whole series, but there are many, many issues of those 32 reprints that I've never seen ever anywhere selling with just the barcode. So I look for them. It's kind of my little secret thing that I search for on eBay, and I'm, obviously letting the cat out of the bag. So now I'm not going to find them anymore, but just a fun thing. And if you find them, they will not be expensive. The only one that's kind of really known through Key Collector is the last issue of Sandman number 75. It's like the newsstand variant is listed, and it's listed as worth like $100. The second print, which many people go after and try and buy, I've seen 20, 30, 40 copies of that for sale. I've seen one copy of issue number 72 with the barcode. So they're just not, they're hard to find. So.
Wow. See, new information. I did not know that.
No, it makes
So Doug, there were 75 issues of Sandman, the original series. How many copies of those 75 do you own?
Do you mean how many copies of each one?
Well, I'm just saying there are 75, right? So if you're collecting, you could say I have each one of them. I have 75.
I have.
How many?
Is it like Gary B's Conan, where you
how many
have 4 or
copies of
5
those 75
copies
do you have?
So I think I stopped trying to get full runs after I had 3 or 4 full runs, and at that point, I just decided there were a ton of key important first appearances. But this was pre the show coming out, so I just kind of did some research and made a list and just started buying copies of those for between $1 and $5 randomly. And there are some copies I have up to 25, 30 copies of.
So like Gary. Good.
I figured I was bored. It was the lockdown. I'm like, they're $1, $2.
Exactly.
Anytime I see them,
Okay.
I know who the first appearances are. They're not in Key Collector, so I might as well just pay $1, $2, $4, whatever, and hang on to them for a while.
That's right. If it has a woman superhero on almost any one, Gary probably has 25 or 30 copies of each one.
Now, Doug,
I have
what you
many
need to
copies
do
of
though,
Conan. But this show's about Doug, not Gary.
Doug, what you need to do now is write articles and send them to Key Collector so that they can start posting all this little trivia,
Right.
and then watch your the value of your collection explode is what you need to do.
Good point.
I'll
So,
pass.
Gary,
Give it another 6 months, though, Doug, and buy the other copies that are out there.
Yeah, it's true.
Gary,
See,
how
Matt just
many
wants you to listen, so
runs
we can
of
go grab them.
sorry?
What's that, Matt?
How many runs of Conan the Barbarian do you own?
No, I have the run. I don't have like double complete runs, but there's a lot of issues. I have like 6, 7 copies of an issue.
Yes.
Sometimes I have the issue slabbed, and I have like 5, 6 raw copies to go with the slab.
Mhm. I figured you would have 5 or 6 full runs.
Yeah, I think 100 is my favorite issue in 58. So 100, I think I have 8, 9 copies of 100, and it's still, if I walk in and it's only $10, I'm going to buy it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's just it's you know what it's like being a niche collector, right? You like what you like.
Yep.
Well, the good thing is if you have a collection of stuff that doesn't really cost a lot of money, because then you can really, especially if there's issues that you like or covers that you like in a particular character or whatever it happens to be, you go out, you spend less than $10 on something like that. It doesn't really hurt and feels good because you got what you like.
Yeah, then someday they make an animated movie about it, and your character that you really like, it becomes worth money.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2099.
Well, and that can be one of the benefits of being a niche collector, because there's a lot of niche things to collect that are cheap. Obviously, there's things on the other side, which Rob gets into those.
I just clicked it all. Is it cheap now? Might be expensive later. Great. It was expensive now. Get it now too. What the hell?
But that's the great thing about these shows. You can get whole things cheap. I mean, like Starriers and just all sorts. I buy, and I'm a sucker. I don't know about you, Doug, but if I see a 4-issue limited series from the 80s and it's bundled together, I'm probably coming home with it.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for the 4-issue miniseries. I really am. Loved them.
But
that sweet story.
That niche stuff really makes a lot of sense. So, for example, it's like some people here know that I like Booster Gold quite a bit. It wasn't very hard to get his entire first run.
Yeah.
A number of years ago.
Yeah.
Number one is a little pricey now, could be, but I have a couple of copies of that. One of them I got signed, but also the Ted Cord Blue Beetle is one of my favorites. And I have multiple copies. Matter of fact, on my mystery box for charity thing that I've done, I've thrown in a bunch of those Blue Beetles. Had so many copies of them, and now the Blue Beetle movie's coming out. Not that it's going to do well, probably because it's a DC movie, but I know that the chords are there, so you never know. Sometimes I call myself an accidental speculator because I collect what I like. And I did that as a kid. Some of them are worth money now, but not because that's what I was doing.
It's only because he paid 2 cents for them when he was a kid.
Yeah.
Some 2 cents, some 10 cents, some 12 cents. That's true.
The return on your investment is mind-numbing.
Right?
It's age. It's just age.
Right.
Every time Joe wants a new car, he just turns a book in.
That's what don't say that. That's what my wife keeps saying. Why don't you sell some of your books and we can buy that? I said, I don't think
then I won't have them.
Right? What don't you get?
But it's great when you find a niche of something you like and you just go after it. I have a full run of Captain Carrot. I mean, but I like it, so I bought it. So that's really great. And with Sandman, I think that's fantastic.
And, Neil Gaiman's he's one of those authors that's gonna remain popular. He's never gone down in popularity.
Yeah. And
it's just getting the right adaptations.
Yep. I thought the first season of the Netflix series was excellent.
Yes.
I know I'm going to wait a while for season 2, but I'm looking forward to that. And I hope that I hope it continues to build an audience, because it is not a mainstream, comic in the sense that not a ton of action, a lot more heady thinking things about it. But I thought they figured out a way to adapt it really well in season 1.
Wow, nice.
I'll be honest with you, though. Neil Gaiman was amazing on Sandman. And Doug, I've told you this before. 1602, my God, it was the worst comic book series I've ever read. It was horrible. I have a full run of it in here, and it's horrible. No, not everything Neil Gaiman does is amazing, but most of it is.
I've never read 1602, and maybe that's why, Matt.
Save your time, okay? It's just not worth it.
And I've heard Matt say that a lot of times.
Yes, I hate that series.
It's still a little tender for him.
Matt, I could be wrong on this, but check. Someone told me that he, when he wrote that, he dedicated it to Todd, who made it necessary. And that basically he agreed to write that for Marvel to help finance the lawsuit that he had with Todd McFarlane over the Angela rights.
Oh, right. I read that.
So,
yeah.
I
Okay,
think
that would make sense.
1602 might be the series. I could be wrong on that.
I have it in the very first one of my drawers because they're all alphabetical, and the first one in the drawer is forward. Well, I list them all alphanumeric, which I have the numbers first, then the A's, and so forth. I will just give you that whole series just so I don't have to look at it. Because I've been looking at it for years and I hate
Oh, poor Matt.
So that's
There
not
you
really
go.
an act of kindness, then, is it? It's an act of revenge.
No, I'm just getting rid of it.
An act of cleaning.
Yes.
Well, after the
I
show,
do that every Saturday.
after the show, I did go back and electronically read the issues that the show is based upon. So I had to skip a couple, I think, at one point in time and so forth. And I enjoyed it. I thought that the writing was really good, and the artwork was somewhat unique, but it fitted really well. I thought, it gave that same, I don't know, that same kind of aura of mysticism to the whole thing.
Mhm.
So yeah.
The art is not for everyone. Neil Gaiman chose different artists for each of the kind of the mini stories that he told, and he did select artists based on their style and how it would fit that story. And because of it, a lot of it's experimental and it's not traditional. It won't remind you of other art that you were seeing in late 80s and certainly not 90s comics, but the cover artist too, I believe Dave McKeon, I might be butchering that, just brilliant artist, who did all of the covers for at least the original series.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so no Sandman characters with Rob Liefeld pouches.
Yeah, no. Oh, if you ever get a chance, if you haven't read Sandman Overture, which Neil Gaiman did, he did a few mini series after the full series ended, but Sandman Overture he did with J.H. Williams III. And whether reading it is your thing or not, get that just for the artwork. It is probably the most brilliant artwork I have ever seen in certainly any mainstream comic series. It's just unreal.
Now, do you read the Sandman universe titles that they have out now?
I don't. I've been debating on reading Nightmare Country, which is written by Tinian. I've been debating on reading that. I've kind of to me, Neil Gaiman is Sandman, so I've kind of held to that. And but someday I might get swayed, and if I hear enough good things about one of the titles or a mini series, I might give it a shot. But to me, Neil Gaiman and the Sandman are one and the same. So I have not read it yet.
Oh, Dave Bratton. If you want to see artwork that rivals McKean Sandman Overture, tune in to Joe Anachronic Show tomorrow. Trust me.
Dave's showing off his Isolation 4 cover, I think.
Well, since we're getting that, it's a good
Dave.
segue into what's coming up for everybody on the panel next. So, Rob, we'll start with you as always, sir. What's coming up for you this week?
Oh, sure. Thursday, I will do my official and final, hopefully, Heroes Con Hall of everything there, including there's a walk around video that's very heavily edited to try to give you just an idea of if you've never been to Heroes Con, what it was without being droning on and on forever about 2 hours of footage. Friday only slabs. Sabat Ken is coming on. He's the first guest to ever email me his list of books he's bringing on to the show. And just buckle up, boys and girls, because it is going to be amazing. And then Sunday, I'll have a special with the Rogue Trader. where my book that I rescued, the Submariner Timely book that I rescued from Australia, that had mold, came in the CGC case, is back from full blown 8 months of mold remediation
Ooh.
and different stuff. We're going to talk about what he did to the book, the techniques that were used, why it doesn't constitute being a conserved grade or anything else, and then we'll reveal whether or not we took a hit, we stayed flat, or did we get a grade bump in the end.
Nice.
Nice.
Now, before we get to Matt, did you want to answer this question real quick, Dave? Hulk Collector 82 Kevin is asking if it's a horror comic, which suspense and horror, correct?
Yeah, so to me, it's a mystery series, suspense series with horror and fantasy elements. So horror is a part of it. It's not a straight horror comic, but there's a decent amount. You'll find it in there.
You know, like Clive Barker used to categorize his stuff. It's not horror; it's imaginative fiction.
There you go.
All right, Mr. Matt Woods, what is coming up for you, sir?
You know, we got the greatest show on earth. It's a comic book crowd on the Anachronic Comics YouTube channel. The next episode is coming up on July 23rd. Normally, it's the last Friday of the month, but hey, that's normally the last Friday. We've had to switch it up. Summertime, there's a lot of different competing things for our time. So in order to get to panel, Joe down below suggested the 23rd. And I know that Alan, Climate Comics, and I were like, that's a pretty good idea. So that is the next time you'll see me up here on the YouTube channel.
And Joe, leading right into you.
Well,
I guess
thanks.
What's coming up for you?
Thanks to Matt for Comic Book Crowd. Just earlier this evening, I dropped a video on the new animated Superman show, My Adventures with Superman. So you may want to take a look at that. Coming up tomorrow night is the next Espresso Mail Call. Dave mentioned it. He will be on along with Mark, and I think Chuck is going to be on that one. We have some guests there. Some good stuff. I've got some good stuff to show. Apparently Dave does too, so we'll see. Thereafter we have the fifth episode of the Fleischer Superman short cartoons coming up after that. And then working on it right now, we're going to have the final 2 cents comics my mom let me keep episode. These are the Fantastic Four comic books that I bought from my friend John for 2 cents. That'll be the next one coming up at that point in time. So, and there's some pretty good ones there.
Nice. And coming up for me in 2 nights, you can see John's Comics with Kids on the in the hot seat. And then July 4th, we're obviously not doing one. So we're going to do a hot seat next Thursday on the 6th. We're going to have Hialeah Comic Bro on. So that should be a fun episode. And then, of course, to end this, we have to go with our guests. Doug, what is coming up for you, sir?
Vacation with my family. But I'm guessing at some point when I get back, I'll be on Reggie. I don't know when to promote Isolation issue 4 because that comes out next month. You can right now get it on pre-sale, and I will say issue number 3 sold out pretty much in pre-sale. So if you're interested in reading the series, I'd encourage you to pre-order a copy of it. One thing that we are doing to support the Kickstarter is there are, I think, a handful of copies still left. I think Matt might have one to show off, or Joe. But I put together a copy of the draft of chapter 1. I originally wrote Isolation as a draft novel, and while I was revising it, pitched it to Reggie as a comic series. So I put out a copy of the manuscript of chapter 1 with some of my original notes and outlines for that as bonus content. So those are, I think, $30 online. They help support the show, but they're limited to 20 copies. And when issue 4 comes out, I'm going to do a private, like a Zoom kind of thing with the people who purchased that, where we're going to talk about isolation, and I'm going to kind of take those people behind the curtain of what is coming in future issues that we will not be talking about broadly outside of that group. So they're sworn to secret. Joe, I think, is writing up the non-disclosure agreement for me.
Doug, the best thing about this was I put mine is back in the closet, so I couldn't pull it out, but I saw Matt's copy, and I'm happy to say that I have copy number 8, Matt. So I beat you out because you have copy number 9. So
well, he saved the best for last, Joe. So what's that tell you?
I don't think so.
And
well done, Joe.
And Doug, I think tonight you definitely sold a couple more copies of your book. So someone's saying they're picking it up, and I saw a couple people say that. So good for you. Here's Hope Collector. He'll pick it up tomorrow. Nice.
I appreciate it.
Range Stalker's Guide to Culture, or what is it, Doug?
Pop Culture Shock Therapy.
Pop Culture Shock Therapy. An amazing book, guys. Like, you will literally laugh out loud as you sit down and read it. Like, it is that just over the top funny on some of those cartoons.
I fell in love with the stalker. That's all I got to say.
I know, he was such a good, like, you were rooting for the stalker halfway through.
But real quick, Doug, where can they buy this book?
So you could I think you could still pick copies up on Amazon and certainly eBay. But I will say that book and Isolation could not be more opposite. Like, if you like gag panel, edgy humor stuff, then Deranged Stalkers is for you. Isolation is an extremely complex mystery series spanning multiple timelines that is all about murder. That's probably the only thing they have in common. There's some dark humor in that, and there's a lot of every issue of Isolation centers around a different murder that took place, or multiple killings that took place. So,
oh. Multiverse murder. Nice. All right, well, guys, great show. First, I want to thank the audience. We had a great turnout tonight to help support you, Doug, and show up. Again, guys, everything, the links are in the description below for everyone here, plus Doug's book. So please go check it out. Plus, watch Joe's show that he did, and you'll get even more behind the scenes on that book. Plus, you'll get to see his brother show off his homage cover that's coming out. So you get a little bit of everything in Joe's show. And plus you get Joe, so you can't lose. All right. Thank you to my 3 co-hosts. It's always a pleasure having you guys. Thank you so much for always being on and supporting. And Doug, thank you for coming on and being on the show. You were an awesome guest, and it was our pleasure to have you, sir.
thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's fun for all of us, guys. It was fantastic. Thank you all once again. And for those of you catching us on the rewind, we certainly appreciate you. And until next time, keep it casual.